So, whatever happened to that crack commando unit sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit, escaping to the Los Angeles underground, still wanted by the government and surviving as soldiers of fortune? Let's find out.
Movies, music, and monsters.
Hey guys, Dan Monroe here talking about movies, music, and monsters. Oh man, the A-Team. It's impossible to think about the 1980s without remembering the staple entertainment blockbusters from that decade. Michael Jackson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Cheers, Magnum P.I., and of course, everyone's favorite ragtag group of crime-fighting renegades, the A-Team.
Hannibal's on the jazz, man. Hannibal's on the jazz.
So grab your mohawk, your GMC van with your favorite cigar and a bucket of stale popcorn, and let's dive in. The A-Team was, without a doubt, the most popular action-packed 48 minutes of television in the 1980s the world had ever seen, which ran on NBC from January 1983 to December 1986, with one additional episode shown in March of 1987 for a grand total of 98 episodes.
It's a action-oriented fantasy adventure with a lot of humor in it. Certainly it's not to be taken very seriously. And we wrote the script and, we had this kind of glowering black guy with that had a bad attitude. And when we got it all finished and we sent it over to the network and we started talking about who could play it, the Mr. T was absolutely the best choice. And we signed him first because we just knew we'd never do any better. And of course, he's just been terrific.
One thing I really loved about this show was its predictability, or call it lazy writing, I don't know, or just a system that works. Literally every show was exactly the same. Some guy needs help. Hannibal shows up in a weird disguise. They hire the A-Team. The A-Team gets captured. They build some incredible contraption to get out of it. There's a shootout and a car chase, and the A-Team wins. So effective, so simple. Gotta love it. We dedicatingly tuned in week after week to see what trouble the boys were going to get into and out of, to see what new elaborate scam Faceman pulls, and how the heck do we get BA on the plane. This time, I think my two favorite shows were the one with the airplane, Beast in the Belly of a Boeing, and the one with the prison going over the wall with hair dryers and trash bags.
Trash bags? I want trash bags.
The cast of this show was absolutely fantastic. One of those rare occasions where the perfect people were cast in the perfect roles, all coming together to make TV history, with George Papard as Hannibal, who in reality apparently had a very difficult and overly egotistical nature, Dirk Benedict as Faceman, Dwight Schultz as Howling Mad Murdoch, who I think was always my favorite character for some reason, who, coincidentally, was going to be removed by the NBC executives because they basically thought that the character was maybe a little too much over the top, but the response to the Murdoch character by test audiences was just too strong, so they kept him in. Towards the end, we also saw another new actor named Eddie Velez playing a character named Frankie Santana in the 5th season, a little bit, but not for too long. Colonel Lynch and Colonel Decker, typical 1980s one-dimensional, authoritatively written characters. Super dumb, but super fun to watch. Dirk Benedict was not, in fact, the first guy to play Face. That role was originally given to a much younger actor and taller actor named Tim Dunnigan, who appeared only in the pilot. Apparently, the network felt that this guy was just too young and too tall to convincingly portray a Vietnam War-era soldier. So he was out, Dirk was in. The character of John Hannibal was actually loosely based on a real Army Special Forces officer named Lieutenant Colonel Bo Gritz, a guy who would often disobey orders and would go off on his own to try to recover lost POWs from the Vietnam War.
I love it when a plan comes together.
I'm sure you do, and say what you will about societal issues now and in the 1980s, but the A-Team was a show for boys. Guys, you know, the women had the soap operas, and we had the A-Team.
It was a guy's show. It was male-driven. It was written by guys. It was directed by guys, acted by guys. It was about what guys do. We talked the way guys talk. We were the boss. We were the god. We smoked when we wanted. We shot guns when we wanted. We kissed the girls and made them cry when we wanted. It was the last truly masculine show.
You know, the members of the A-Team certainly had a lot of really cool gizmos and gadgets to help them not only fight crime, but also make sure that the job was done properly and on time, and I can almost guarantee you that every member of the A-Team absolutely knew they were on time because they wore one of these incredible pieces of art known as Holzkern watches. Holzkern sent me this gorgeous watch, beautiful black and blue detailing, which are my two favorite colors, by the way, and I pretty much wear it every day. I love it because it's classy and lightweight. You can barely feel it on your arm. Absolutely stunning, the amount of detail and obvious quality that goes into these watches, and I do consider myself a bit of a watch nerd. This incredible company specializes in both watches and jewelry for both men and women made from all natural materials like wood and stones, which makes each product extremely unique. Family owned and operated from Vienna, Austria since 2016, and this is really cool. When Holzkern releases a product, they put them out in much smaller quantities, which ensures that every single item meets an extremely high standard of quality that will literally last you a lifetime. They not only offer free express worldwide shipping, but also guarantee delivery by Christmas Day if ordered by December 19th. And why not? So many incredible pieces of jewelry and gorgeous watches for your husband or your wife. Really a no-brainer when it comes to picking out the perfect gift this holiday season. Just check out the link below, holzkern.com/Monroe for 15% off purchases for the holidays, or simply scan this QR code to begin some super easy holiday shopping with Holzkern. And now, back to the A-Team. The writers added some female characters to the show, Amy Allen in the first season, until for whatever reason, like the whole cast ganged up on her and got her fired during season 2, when they brought in another woman, the Tawania Baker character, which pretty much ended up with the same fate as Amy. Apparently, George Papard, who had a tendency to be a bit of an egomaniac, would often walk up to her and tell her that her character was useless and nobody wanted her on the show. Jeez, easy there, George. But in a way, you know, I get it, sort of. I mean, remember, George Papard was hired as the star, the big name of the show, but as the Mr. T character gained in extreme popularity with the fans, B.A. Baracus quickly started becoming the face of the show, and George Papard really resented that, and in a way, I do see his point. Very similar to the way that Guy Williams and June Lockhart felt during the filming of Lost in Space, when Jonathan Harris's Dr. Smith character began overtaking not only the popularity of the show, but also most of every single storyline. Needless to say, George Papard and Mr. T didn't really get along all that well, but that's Hollywood.
George was extraordinarily professional in many ways. The very first day that I came to the set of the A-Team, I walked into the makeup trailer, and there was George, and he came up and said, "How do you do? George Papard here. I'm not a very nice man." But George was a movie star, very competitive. And Mr. T was really the huge draw when the show opened. And George didn't like that because he was the star. When the show hit number 1, George got up on the hood of a car and said, "As the star of this show," and Mr. T turned around and went into his trailer.
According to Dirk Benedict, during the 5th season, things were so bad with George Peppard that Robert Vaughn, who was a good friend of his, was brought on board hoping it would help ease the tensions between him and Mr. T. It helped, but not much. You know, I've got to say this right up front. Mr. T has to be one of the most polite, genuine, and kindest Hollywood celebrities I've ever heard of. Truly. Yeah, he comes across like this big tough guy, but in reality, from what I've heard, he's just the most gentle, giving, and loving soul, and that is so awesome, but he does occasionally have cracks in his armor. At one point, Mr. T, while filming an episode on a cruise ship, was apparently having a lot of issues at home, and not only that, but was very annoyed with the sound of the air conditioner in his cabin. Anyway, he had himself helicoptered off the boat, off the show, and would not return until a huge list of demands was met, which literally almost cost him his job. But in the end, apparently Mr. T cooled off and came back to the show, and it's a darn good thing for the ratings that he did.
I pity the fool that quits the A-team.
That, Robot, is one of my all-time favorite lines.
It's my favorite line of the show.
Is it?
Absolutely.
So, how many times do you think you heard that in this show?
My memory banks do not exactly recall.
Well, that's because the answer is none. 0. Nada.
What?
You heard me right. We always associate Mr. T saying, "I pity the fool," with the A-Team, but that line was never once spoken during the entire run of the show. The line was actually spoken by Mr. T's Clubber Lang character in 1982 in Rocky III, but I suppose it's pretty easy to associate one with the other. You know, the Mandela effect.
Dang that Mr. Mandela.
Dirk Benedict was awesome in just about anything he did, especially Battlestar Galactica. Gotta love the one scene in the A-Team where the Cylon walks right by Dirk Benedict. I mean, come on, how cool is that? Kind of interesting, we always knew that the A-Team was imprisoned for a crime they didn't commit, but what I didn't know was why. Well, according to the folklore of the show, in 1972, the guys were set out on a highly secretive mission to rob the Bank of Hanoi, steal the gold, and help end the Vietnam War. But after they pulled it off and got back, only to discover that their commanding officer was murdered and their headquarters was destroyed. With no connection between the two, since it was a covert operation, the boys ended up in a maximum security prison for stealing the gold, which is why they were referred to as soldiers of fortune. Gotta love the tough guy super cool names. B.A. Baracus, with B.A. standing for Bosco Albert, Templeton, Faceman Peck, and of course Murdoch, whose first name we never knew and never found out. Yes, all the members of the A-Team were super cool, but let's not forget about their primary mode of transportation, the van. And this is really kind of interesting. Everybody, including me, always thought that the van was black and red. But actually, it wasn't. It was black, red, and gray, a common misconception based on lighting conditions during filming and the fact that all the A-Team van toys were simply black and red. But if you look really close in a lot of the episodes, you can clearly see the gray color just above the red detailing on the van. Not really very super important, but I thought I would just give you one of those little tidbits that's fun to know during your next next high-stakes game of Trivial Pursuit. Now, from what I understand, there were up to 8 possible different full-size vans used during the production of the show, and where are they today? That's a very good question, and we'll get to that. According to hotcars.com, occasionally the van had a sunroof and other times it didn't, but they even claim that in some rare cases, usually stunt sequences, that the production team substituted the normal GMC Vandura for a Chevy van and even a Ford Econoline van. I don't know, I'm not an expert, but that's what they say. And that music, that unbelievably memorable theme that hit us right between the eyes at the beginning of every episode, composed by the incredible Mike Post. This guy's music was everywhere throughout the course of the 1980s. Magnum P.I., L.A. Law, Quantum Leap, and even Hill Street Blues. Believe it or not, and this is weird, the French version of the A-Team theme song actually had lyrics, if you can believe that, which kind of resembled the spoken description of the opening credits. I definitely got to look that up. And what would any 1980s television show be without guest stars? Well, the A-Team had them too, with Rick James, Boy George, and even Hulk Hogan appearing in 2 episodes as himself. Even though we, here in America, absolutely loved the weekly barrage of explosions and violence, well, the German broadcasting companies didn't quite feel the same way. In fact, they only aired like 26 out of the 98 episodes. Go figure. Speaking of on-screen violence, I always thought it was interesting, yet slightly hilarious, that no matter what happened in any of the shows, the bad guys would get thrown off a cliff in a car, roll down a 3,000-foot rocky incline, explode into flames 30 feet high, and then simply get out of the car and just dust themselves off. And don't forget about all the unbelievably fun A-Team toys. We had the action figures, the super cool van, the combat headquarters, the armored attack adventure set, the action train set, the board game, the color form set, the talking Mr. T doll, the action Corvette playset, the interceptor jet bomber, the motorized patrol boat, the super cool trading cards, the Mr. T Junior dumbbell set, the bad guys action figure set, books, comic books, video games, and so many more. We could literally be here all day. Now, even though this show was a massive hit during its first few seasons, by the time the 5th season rolled around, the network, NBC, for whatever reason, just didn't give the show the attention they used to give it. I mean, okay, yeah, the audience wasn't tuning in quite as much, and the ratings were definitely on a decline. So, after 4 years on Tuesday nights, NBC moved the show to a new time slot on Friday nights, which pretty much put the final nail in the Hollywood coffin, as they say, and sadly, in November of 1986, NBC canceled the series, refusing to even order the last 9 episodes of what would have been a 22-episode 5th season. Well, the A-Team came and the A-Team went, but that certainly wasn't the end of this classic 1980s action show. Well, almost, but not quite. The A-Team was nominated for 3 Academy Awards in 1983, 84, and 87 for Outstanding Sound Mixing and Sound Editing. Now, as far as the reboots, remakes, and God help us reimaginings, well, in 2010, we did get one of those, starring Liam Neeson and Bradley Cooper. I think I saw it once. It clearly didn't do much at the box office, or there certainly would have been more than one. It was okay, I guess. I don't really remember, so I suppose forgettable. Okay, but where are all the super cool costumes, sets, and props from the show? Well, surprisingly, there's not a lot. I mean, keep in mind, there wasn't very much to begin with. The costumes were all simply returned to the prop houses after filming. The guns they used were returned to the Ruger company. However, one of the original second unit clapperboards from the A-Team sold in 2024 for over $3,000. The prop gallery had an authentic license plate from one of the vans that was also sold, although it didn't say how much it went for. And as far as the rest of the stuff, well, apparently at least one of the original vans used to be in the back lot of Universal Studios in the early 2000s, but from what I understand these days, it's long gone. Another one of the vans I heard was in a Star Cars museum in the United Kingdom, which sold in 2011. Other experts claim that only 2 original genuine A-Team vans still exist to this day, so sadly, like I said, not much, and it really is too bad, but if I missed something, let me know. The A-Team was released on DVD in October of 2007, another release in 2010, including 25 discs packaged in a very cool black van, and finally, a gorgeous Blu-ray release. And man, I gotta tell ya, these shows look just great. The A-Team not only kept audiences all over the world glued to their seats week after week with the bold yet somewhat preposterous inventions, car chases, and impossible car wrecks, but also spawned an almost cult following among fans that continues to this day, paving the way for other great action TV shows of the late 80s and 1990s, including MacGyver, Airwolf, Hunter, The Equalizer, Profiler, Walker, Texas Ranger, and so many more. We could be here all day, but that, my friends, is the topic of another video. I really hope you guys enjoyed that deep dive into whatever happened to the A-Team, and if you did and you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got a whole bunch of new videos coming up really soon that I know you guys are just gonna dig. And please feel free to stop back anytime as we together continue the conversation on movies, music, and monsters.
Movies, music, and monsters.